Hello, I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts. I hope y'all are having a great day. I'm running a little bit behind, but I wanted to answer a question April sent over. And I know there's been a lot of debate back and forth about this. This is, how about brassica and thyroid function? So what's out there in sort of mainstream advice, and Dr. Dodds says this in her book. Hey, April, good to see you. She says this in her book too, the Canine Nutrigenomics, that thyroid can be adversely impacted by eating too much of the brassica species vegetables. So April asked, she's really concerned about using brassicas and leafy greens in the diet because of Thor having hypothyroidism. And she's heard from 2 canine nutritionists and this sort of stuff saying that using this class of veggies isn't good because they contain thyroid disruptors and can interfere with how the body uses iodine, which makes sense because I can't use kelp in the diet. I'm not sure why you can't use kelp, April, but let me know about that. But here, what I want to tell you a little bit about is what I've found in research and also from a clinical perspective of what I've experienced as well. So there's several really good articles out there, and this first one is from the Linus Pauling Institute, and again, apologies, I've got to go kind of back and forth on this. There we go, on this thing here. So what they're saying at the Linus Pauling Institute is that really high intake of cruciferous vegetables such as cabbage and turnips have been found to cause hypothyroidism in animals. And so they go on to explain kind of the mechanisms of what's going on. But in the studies they've reviewed, the risk of hypothyroidism doesn't appear to be increased unless there is an iodine deficiency. And one study in humans found that 5 ounces a day of cooked Brussels sprouts for 4 weeks had no adverse effect on thyroid function. Now, one of the studies they quote is from a study in rabbits eating cabbage published in 1928. So this is the problem. Much of this research is very, very old and hadn't been really redone until recently. There was another study in 2016 in Nutrition Reviews that said if people had really, really high intake of things like collard green, Brussels sprouts, and certain varieties of Russian kale, they had enough goitrogens to potentially interfere with iodine uptake. But other cruciferous veggies, such as broccoli, turnips, and most types of kale, don't include enough goitrogens to create a significant risk. And then the other thing, too, is if you are cooking the vegetables, then you're going to lessen their goitrogenic properties. Now, let me show you that link. And then there is another one, another paper or another article on the web that actually is written by Dr. Sarah Ballantyne, who's an MD, and basically what she's saying, and she does an excellent review of the current scientific literature out there, but basically there never was really strong evidence that cruciferous veggies needed to be avoided in the absence of iodine deficiency. So if there's a reason you can't use kelp, again, you can use iodized salt, and granted it doesn't have the best stuff in there, but iodine deficiency will also create hypothyroidism, so it is an essential nutrient. And then, frankly, you can use an iodine supplement if iodized salt doesn't appeal to you. And there is iodine in holistic total body support. So basically what Dr. Ballantyne is saying is that there really was never strong evidence that cruciferous vegetables needed to be avoided. And she goes on to review several other papers written in 2018 and 2019 that again show that really this isn't a big deal. Now, and in fact, her research is pointing her in the direction of actually selenium deficiency, which is one of the other things that's quite interesting. This is a micronutrient that is essential, and it does have the potential to also be toxic when given in excess. So you do have to really get that dosing quite right. And then, so that's kind of one of the other things. And the other thing is, too, is that in the study she's quoting, many of these brassica species actually seem to help improve thyroid function even when there is iodine deficiency. So, but there's really no reason for iodine deficiency to be going on. Does that make sense to you, April? So I'm not sure why you're not able to use kelp, but there's other options for iodine supplementation. So I hope that's helpful because, and this is unfortunately what is in most of the veterinary literature. And 10 years ago, I would have told you the same thing. But what I would have said is that as long as your dog is not already hypothyroid, then, and meaning hypothyroid in terms of testing, you know, the T3 and the T4 is low, the TSH is high, or you have thyroid autoantibodies present, then there's no reason to avoid them. And again, the cooking is going to help remove those anti-nutrients, and goitrogens are another example of an anti-nutrient by breaking them down during that cooking process. So I hope that makes sense. Good. I'm glad that helped you, April, because it is like, has Dr. Roberts lost her mind? Does she even know what she's talking about? And, you know, so yeah, I do most of the time, and you guys teach me a lot of stuff too. But there's a lot of things that are in the literature that are assumed to be God-given fact, when in truth we really don't have a great backup of knowledge to say that, yeah, this is really the deal. So there's a big push in both veterinary medicine and in human medicine to be an evidence-based medicine practitioner. And so people will bring this out and say, I'm an evidence-based medicine practitioner. Well, the truth is that evidence-based medicine has less than 16% of what they consider evidence backed up by double-blinded studies. And these same folks will poo-poo anything you tell them if you don't have a double-blinded study to back it up. But the thing is they don't actually understand where their evidence-based medicine stuff is coming from. I mean, truth be told, we don't fully understand how anesthesia works, but it does, and we know how to use it safely for the most part. So, you know, golly, grain of salt. You know, take everything with a grain of salt. So, let's see. We've got a couple of questions here I can answer for you real quick. Can she use Jamie's wanting to know if she can use sweet potatoes in lieu of carrots. Yes. So, any of the orange and one of your pups you think may react to carrots. And she just likes carrots. So here's what I would say, Jamie. You can use any of the orange fleshed squashes, so things like acorn squash, butternut squash, things of that nature in place of carrots. Sweet potatoes are going to be a little bit starchier, so if you're not already using a starch, you can use sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, rice, whatever grains that are good, work well for your pets. And for my old guy Esau, we used to have to feed him an extra cup of rice or another grain, depending on what we were using at the time, with each day plus some additional fat to keep the weight on him. So this dude, to keep him at 46 pounds, I had to feed him 8 cups of food total per day. So that's a lot. So whatever you got to do to keep it up. And the last comment you've got here, Jamie, with using sweet potatoes, acorn, squash, pork, kale, green beans, spinach, and cabbage, and then added 2 cups of barley and a half cup of wild rice blend. I mean, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And that should work well. Now, Miyoshi is asking about nightshade plants. And yes, you can use them. Now, here's the deal. You got to figure out if your dog or cat is sensitive to them. And so sensitivity may end up looking like a histamine reaction, meaning itchy skin, worse asthma, things of that nature, diarrhea, all of that. So, just you've got to experiment and see how your pet does with them. And so what I would suggest is that in one batch of food, in the 4 cups of regular veggies, use 2 cups of one nightshade. So tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, do it separately. Eggplant seems to be the thing that tends to trip most of us up, both pets and humans. So again, see how your pet responds. If you find that there's an issue, and if you're really super suspicious, and instead of committing a batch of food to it, try adding something like 3 to 4 cherry tomatoes to a meal and see how that goes. And do that for a couple of days. If you do that for 48 hours, that's going to give you a clear picture. Within 72 hours, if there's going to be a problem, it will show up by then. Good. Let's see. And Bettina, gosh, I mean, honest to Pete, do you guys want to do a cookbook? You're creating these beautiful batches that would make anybody happy to come home to. So congrats, Bettina. That's lovely stuff. And Miyoshi's asking about adding calcium, and you guys got her covered. Yes, you do need to add calcium to each batch. And good stuff there. And Kelly, yes, get a roaster oven or get a couple of hotel pans, which will fit inside of an oven. And see if that will help get you to triple batches more quickly. It really does. It really does help. Mayoshi's asking why, when I explain to vets what meat meal is they're all in denial. It's because we all drank the Kool-Aid, essentially. Hills and Royal Canin and several other companies taught us about what's in pet food, and they're still, like Royal Canin periodically circles back to saying that corn is a health food because it's gluten-free. So it's just, it's one of those deals. Just acknowledge, thank your veterinarian, and work with them in the way that you can. If they're not getting it, just, don't beat your head against the wall, because the Kool-Aid is pretty hard to undrink, so to speak. Bettina's asking about Murphy scratching his eye, licking his feet, and anxiety way up. Allergies in November in Wisconsin. Allergy season has been very peculiar this year, so I would suspect that if you're not, I think you may be using quercetin already. And so if that's not the case, I would try quercetin or quercetin and nettles to help reduce the allergic reaction. The other thing is that antihistamines are very close in structure to tricyclic antidepressants. And so if anxiety is a component, I think that Benadryl is not a bad option there to help reduce both the itchies and the anxiety. And then I would use quercetin as well, so you don't have to use a ton of an antihistamine. And it's just, it has just been a really, really strange year. So with Benadryl, dogs take them a lot more than Sorry, I'm looking at some of these other comments and I got sidetracked. At any rate, dogs take a lot more Benadryl and other antihistamines than we do. I do try to avoid Zyrtec, especially long term, because there's been issues with elevated liver enzymes with it long term. With Murphy, I think Murphy's around 50, 60 pounds. You could use, frankly, up to 3 25 milligram Benadryls twice daily. I would start with 1 twice a day and kind of titrate your way up to the needed dose. I hope that's helpful. Let's see, and then Erin's asking anything besides frankincense oil topically that she can do for a lipoma. So this is where seaweed is used to soften hard nodules. So you could try adding something like 1/4 teaspoon of seaweed every day to see if we can help reduce the size down. Now, if that thing has gotten really, really enormous in a hurry, there is a small subset of lipomas that are potentially malignant. So that's what, if it is really huge, Erin, you may want to consider getting that checked out. And I hate to say it, but surgery may be a need. And then Bettina's also asking about leafy green veggies. So, you know, beet greens, spinach, chard, all of those things are wonderful. So yeah, the chard actually and beets are the same species, interestingly enough. Isn't that funny? And you can use these other good greens. And Balance It has a lot of information, although they tend to like to use their supplements. And let's see what else. Make sure I got everything else. And let's see. Interesting. So, April, I'm looking at your video of Thor, I think. And if he is indeed hypothyroid, that can create some behavioral issues. So, definitely, and the other thing is he may just be resource guarding. So if he is really resource guarding just around the bone, then it may be that you just got to take it away, because if he continues this behavior, it tends to escalate and spread to other things. So if it's only around the bones, you may need to 86 him. And then Erin says that's just good. So he's on thyroxine. So hopefully you're going to see some of this stuff change as far as behavior issues. And hopefully, too, some of the inflammation episodes from the Shar-Pei fever. And if it's just pea-sized, Erin, definitely go for the seaweed fix. And beets and chard are not brassicas. So I think there's some a list of brassica species in all of the materials on in the CrockPET stuff. And I'm happy to tell you all, I just reshot a video for how to do CrockPET cooking, and so that will be coming up here pretty quickly, being available for you. I've got my video guy working on that right now. That's what I have for you this week. I would also remind you about the iPets Ally opportunity we've got. So this is a different site or sort of amount of content than what you've got currently with the original CrockPET diet. And because you are my loyal folks and you've kept me running, you guys get 3 months for $1. And I think it's going to be a really awesome resource for you. So that's what I have for you this week. Until next week, remember your pet's best health starts in the bowl. take good care and keep the questions coming and keep taking care of each other. You're doing an awesome job. Many thanks.